And they said,
Yeah. Continue, just.
millions of viewers to Nenad Bach's Hangoutology. It's a pleasure to see you, Nenad,
Yeah.
and anybody else who might
So we'll see who will join us.
program. All the other guests, I guess, have zoned out, or they're watching the slow harikari of former President Trump.
Yes. So in Greenwich Village you had Zoom. You started to talk about Zoom in Greenwich Village.
Yeah, frankly, I think I'm just glad to see you and know about what you're doing, all the work you ping pong for Parkinson's and stuff that's, has some value to the human race.
Yeah.
All due respect to show business.
Yeah. We opened in Philadelphia. I was in Philadelphia a few days ago. We opened a chapter there.
Think of all the people on television and the movies, and even the great Jacqueline Suzanne, who went to her bookstores and caused a riot if they didn't have her book in the window. And foul behavior always attracts a lot of attention.
Yeah.
And we're all for entertainment, for music and the arts. But
We have boys coming.
Maestro, apologies for being late. Is the nature of Hangoutology to just show up when
Exactly.
you can?
There is no schedule.
No schedule. I just happened
I'm
to.
here to see you. I thought
Good.
we're the only people not watching the MSNBC special report on the trials of that
trials of
great
travail.
showman, Donald the no talent Trump.
Yes.
But
I did try to round up Douglas Yeager.
Okay.
I
is here, I think.
I left him a message, Nenad and David. Yesterday, I saw Doug, and we actually had lunch near Columbus Circle. Doug had to take care of some business. When I left, he told me he had a little bit, I don't know, he had something happened at the store where he fell. Is this? And Doug, when you speak with him next time, David, please, if you could tune in with him, I'm concerned. Always,
The slum is in horizontal. It's horizontal broadcasting.
That was also
I'm trying to levitate.
Levitation.
Now my life is completely untrumped. I feel like back with the human race, don't we all? All you
Yes.
viewers watching. What a wonderful thing to see some happy, accomplished people that have a life beyond watching television and really getting bummed out.
David, do you see Radoslav levitating?
Is that Radoslav?
That's Radoslav, yeah.
It's starting to work. It's starting to work. I think I'm about a quarter of an inch up.
Bratislav, I have a question to ask you on behalf of millions of viewers and all your fans in Okima and around the world. How come there's so many gifted, talented people of the Croatian persuasion, like Nenad Bach and yourself, to somehow do all this extraordinary stuff and got to be so good in a place that, according to the Eastern Seaboard establishment, which is kind of the colonized version of European culture of yesteryear, watered down to the point where no one even knows what it is in the first place. How come Croatia, which no one ever heard of, which we never studied in music school, all the folk musicians and the traditional musicians and people like yourself that could play stuff and sing in so many languages and play everything from Bach to bebop to every type of music. And there's so many gifted people there. Do they, in schools, do they include music as part of the curriculum for growing up to be a human being rather than just something that you might do as a hobby if you can't play football?
There was a curriculum in school, yeah, for me. But I went to music school also at the same time.
Nenad, was that in Rijeka?
Rijeka, yes, in Rijeka, yeah.
So they have a very good music school system and very
They have music schools separately from the elementary school and high school, but they have class of music. We listened to the music, and a teacher would explain things, some sort of a cultural thing, more than music, knowledge of instrument.
Nenad, absolutely. But my experience with music comes to I had two grandmothers. One was famous and she was out touring, so I didn't see her much. But my other grandma, she taught me maybe 40 folk songs by the time I was 2 or 3.
Mm.
And I was doing gigs for my grandpa and his buddies. They'd come over and I'd do a floor show and they'd throw money. And I've been doing this gig for a long time, David. It hasn't really changed much at all. And my grandpa was a banker. He was like one of the main bankers, in old Yugoslavia.
Wow.
So he was, he was careful. He would like gather up the ones that actually were worth something. He let me play with the little dinky ones that were like, And I was working. I was making money for the family as a 2-year-old.
Incredible.
So now you can imitate after this. It's a success.
Yeah, but beyond all that, here's something that I will say about Croatia is just everywhere I go, and I think particularly down by the sea, I'm in a restaurant and there's a guy on the grill and he breaks into a song and he's killing it, and he's just working the grill, at a restaurant. He's old guy with a mustache. He breaks into some old Dalmatian song. Everybody knows every song that ever was, and they've learned them from grandma since they were like 2. And another thing I'll add, my famous grandma, the great classical pianist, there was a great interview that I heard when she was 3 or something. She was attacked by a really mean dog and maybe even slightly injured. And it scared her so much that she was mute for 2 years. And to get her out of the muteness, her mom, my great grandma, sang to her like, maybe, 12 hours a day. And lo and behold, she becomes a world famous pianist. So there you have it.
Wow. What a transformation.
Yeah. Well, as you know, we have so much talent here, and so many, when you get together at the folk festivals like we've done, or the Folk Alliance, or you go to a jazz festival or a bluegrass festival or any kind of, or a symphony festival, chamber music, anything that's from the heart, that's accomplished, where the people somehow retain that love and that spark that made us ignore our career counselors and decide if we were put here to do it, we should just spend our life trying to do it somehow, regardless of what we have to do to pay the rent. And we're doing what we love. And there's a lot of people like that. But after a certain point, after you're told 500 or 600 times, you suck, and there's no reason to be wasting your time doing that, grow up and do something else, it can be depressing. But I find in most places I've been in Europe, and people like yourself that come from Croatia, everybody that has 1/10 of what we do, but possibilities economically and all that stuff, materialistically, they got that other thing. And I think we're inching towards that now. And our job is to, for younger people to see that here's some older, speaking of, I qualify that since I'm 92. They see older people, much younger, grown-ups like yourself, that are so terrific and have so much fun and love it. They can sense that regardless of what you're doing. They say, well, these guys and gals really want to do what is deemed not possible and a waste of time. That's a wonderful thing. But it seems a lot of places in the world, that's just your stories, that's a given. So I guess it kind of explains why we actually have a value in this world, just to give people not just the work in music or the arts, but anything, that having a job can be a beautiful thing, and doing better than is expected, doing some good work is a beautiful thing. And every time if I feel myself drifting off into getting the oy vey, blues, woe is me, what's watching too much CNN. And when I see you or anybody that I admire, I say, damn, it is a wonderful world.
Yeah, I have a comment that my curriculum for elementary and high schools would be that you have to learn one language that is not yours, that you have to play one instrument,
Right.
that you can cook for a week, five meals that you can cook, and then if you finish elementary school with that, I think you did well.
Exactly. That's it right there.
5 meals, the children, when you are 12, you should know cook 5 meals. I know only 2.
I'm a late bloomer, but I learned, and I'm grateful that I learned. I think it was after I went to Italy that I started cooking.
I'm cooking right now.
Yes.
Kale, like
Kale.
Savoy cabbage with potatoes.
That's 95% of our DNA is Cade, I think.
Kale, Savoy cabbage. It's
Well, it's good.
David, do you have culinary talents, by the way? Do you cook? Do you have a few great meals in you that you can rustle up? Yeah.
Well, during the period that I was really had a real domestic life with my wonderful wife of 24 years, she had a family restaurant that she worked at as a kid, and she was a fantastic cook herself. Just last night in Albany, she had a whole film that she made about her grandmother, who was a survivor of abuse and ended up being this extraordinary woman, living till her 80s, finally happily married, and great to every single person that crossed her path, not an embittered, angry person, but somehow someone who not only dealt with that, but became one of the great restaurateurs and cooks. And I remember going to eat, and all the people that worked there loved her. She was so kind, and she could really cook. And my wife, ex-wife, Laura Lee, was a fantastic cook, and all of my 3 kids got to be great cooks just from hanging out and watching. And my mother was a wonderful cook, and I always enjoyed it. But since I was playing music and doing a lot of other things, 16 hours a day, I would just throw together anything. And my best known recipe was the omelet I made for Charlie Parker when he came in, and a whole bunch of people that crashed in my apartment, even though they thought I was nuts, because they knew Bird, Charlie Parker, would be there. And he said, "What you got the scarf? What do you have to eat?" So I opened up the icebox and made an omelet with marmalade, peanut butter, mayonnaise, tomato sauce, a little maple syrup, onions, everything that was there. He said, "I see I'm in the presence of a stone gourmet." And we wolfed the whole thing down with a side of borscht and sour cream and some orange soda, and then topped off the evening after a jam session eating hot dogs from a stand as I drove him back to where he was. So that I kind of lived off of that eccentric style of whatever's in the icebox.
Where was that?
However, when I finally got together with my kids years later, they said, "Daddy, why don't you make one of those crazy omelets like you did for Charlie Parker?" I said, "Well, we don't have any eggs here." So I took everything else out that we had, and I thought it was pretty good. And they said, "Look, Daddy, you're very talented. We can't eat that." And my wife said, "I really care about you, but your cooking is awful." So I said, "Well, I cooked up this whole meal for them." So I tried to give some to the dog, and the dog wouldn't eat it.
Oh.
So at that
Oh,
point,
that's
I decided maybe I should get a cookbook, and I got the Escoffier cookbook. On the first page, you had to use a Robert sauce, and all the directions were so complicated that unless you were a professional chef, you wouldn't know what to do. So now I'm finally, by trial and error and pretending to impersonate a grown-up, finding recipes that seem to come naturally from what's around that are more or less edible. So I'm getting into it to the point where now I can hang out with a really good cook and check out what they're doing and ask them a question the way we learn music. Where is the one? And could you please show me that again slower? Please, I know you told me 5 times, but show me one more time, please. And it's amazing how much you can learn and how much people who are really good, if they see that you're humble and want to do it well and realize that you're just a beginner, will show you stuff and you can get some picture somehow of how to approach it. So I would say probably in 25 years, I'll only be 115 by then, so I should be mature enough to know what to do. I think I'll be a good cook if I live that long. But in the meantime, I admire good cooks, and not being that good a cook makes me appreciate those who really can cook. So for all you folks out there, if you play an instrument, rather than being jealous or angry at someone who plays better, practice. And if you want to be a better cook, cook up a storm.
Yeah.
The train agrees with me, if nothing else.
That was dramatic.
Well, it's very creative job.
101.
Cooking is very creative.
Starting up again. You have some role to play on stage, according to Doug. The Cherry Orchard.
Yeah.
One of the best things are to take those spinach, the wraps, they call them, and they were used basically, I guess, to make tamales. There's a difference between tamales and tortillas, and some you cook in a beautiful sort of a part of a corn stalks inside of it. It's like a corn stalk. That's a real art. And I believe that is a tamale. And a tortilla, unless I have it backwards, you take one of those beautiful green, I use the spinach ones, and then I took independently, I saute all kinds of vegetables and cheese and everything else, and then I put it on top of the tortilla, having the spinach tortilla just raw, and like a wrap, but instead of wrapping it, use that as the bottom, and it's incredibly good and nourishing. And there's all kinds of stuff you can do if you take the time, but mostly it's not burning everything. And again, asking those who cook well how to do it. And I guess that's the way we learn everything.
Yeah.
David, where did you live when you made the breakfast for Charlie Parker? Where did you live?
Right.
Well, at that time, that was 1952, a few weeks ago, and I was living in a basement apartment in 1815 16th Street between S and Swan Street. And he came down there. I met Dizzy 1951. He and his whole band wanted a place where they could party all night and crash out. And I didn't cook for him. Otherwise, I'm not sure he would still have been my friend the rest of his life. But Charlie Parker was hungry.
That was Manhattan.
Eat anything.
That was Manhattan, yeah, Manhattan.
Was that Manhattan, David?
Pardon me?
Was that in Manhattan? Was that in New York
Oh,
City?
no, that was in Washington, D.C.
Ah, that was the reason for the names.
And we used to have basement apartment jam sessions that were very much like ones of when we were in the parking lot at Okima. Everybody would come by from every genre and hang out, and people would recite Shakespeare or a poem, or if they were from the National Symphony, come and play some chamber music, and jazz players would come, and all the people who worked in the embassies would bring their instruments over and just hang out. Mostly, we never planned anything, and I used to leave my door open, and there would be a party every Saturday night, bring your own bottle party. And when I went to Panama, I guest conducted the symphony, and one of the trumpet players said, "Come on, man," he said, "we're gonna have a real descarga." I said, "What's that?" He said, it means discharge in Spanish, descarga. But that's what we in Puerto Rico call it, jams, what you call a jam session. So we went to this fantastic place, a whole apartment house, and the whole apartment house was having a party. All the lights were on, all the kids were there in their pajamas or whatever, older folks, and everybody was hanging out with everybody and playing. Those who played music played in one room and wandering around. It was just like a whole wonderful, as if it was one gigantic family. And of course, the music of playing jam sessions or getting together and playing shape notes, singing, any kind of music, or people back porch picking, whatever genre, that's so much of what music is about. So what seemed to some to be eccentric, saying, who's in charge of this? Or what's the other different genres? Or every kind of music. I remember our basement apartment were supposedly things that nobody would enjoy. And when the people from the embassies who just worked there but wanted to go out and have some fun when they were off duty, would come, and people from the symphony who played great, they never could go to a party and hang out and play a Bach unaccompanied violin piece and have everybody listen and enjoy it and enjoy them. It was wonderful, and we never planned it. It just kind of happened, and that's something. That's why I love being at that Woody Fest with you. And I can just tell one thing that I'll let everyone else speak. Rad was the person who everybody said when I was first there in 2005, get Rad and the Burns sisters. I said, who's Rad? They said, that's Radoslav Lorkovic. I can't describe him, but when you hear him play the accordion and piano, you'll know why everybody wants him to play for them. And the Burns sisters were these, at that time, 3 amazing sisters, and they could sing with anybody. And they were so good. If you had Rad and the Burns sisters, whoever was playing could walk off the stage, which happened once or twice, and it would still be a great show with an encore, because they were so good. They made everybody else sound good, which is the whole idea, the highest level you could achieve in music and life, to make others shine. You can do that. Ooh, look out. And it was really such a treat to come to that festival and see that spirit, and to see everybody coming and sharing and appreciating each other rather than wanting to kill each other. And I don't say that in a negative way, because we all live in the same tough world. We all have to find a way to pay our rent and survive. But you don't have to become a monster in order to achieve something. You only have to become a monster if you want to be the world's biggest monster, and then you can join that whole brigade of people trying to climb up the manure pile to see how far up they can get it and dump on everybody else until someone else takes their place. And that's not a criticism. It's just an compassionate observation of what I had to unlearn my entire life, because I was brought up to think that the typical boat person, you got to be a big shot.
So David, tell me, in your basement apartment, did you see the legs when you look like, you see shoes, people walking or no? In basement apartment, did you see people's legs or no?
There's that mural behind you, Nenad, showing the people like the angels with the ping pongs. Boy, that says everything. That shows the ping pong.
Yeah.
We were growing up,
maybe
that's for people that can't play tennis or midgets. They're not really playing tennis. They're just playing, as if that was something that was a waste of time. That what you're doing with people with Parkinson's is showing how that can be therapeutic way to recapture your life. Wow. And that picture behind you of everybody kind of flying almost like angels, that's a beautiful thing. I hope
that is artist from Barcelona, Ignasi Blanc, and he painted this for me. And I will see him in July 1st. I will be in Barcelona. I'll do a small tournament in Barcelona on July 5th and 6th, and hopefully he will be there. Ignasi Blanc. He did the cover also of the book. Let me show you.
Oh, wow.
I don't know if you can see.
One of the things in the music world, I know you're out every single night trying to save our culture from going down the drain. And for people that aren't familiar with Michael Spudek, he's from New York City. And he's
Where's
just one of those guys that learned 5 languages and plays all the different instruments and knows every kind of music, from classical music of the past and present to songwriters, singer-songwriters, and encourages every single person he meets to go out there and dare to do it. That's a wonderful thing.
David, to be in New York City at this time where people like David Amram roam and all the wonderful musicians and cultures and how everyone coexists, like the beauty of just being in a big cosmopolitan environment. Because I'm thinking about what you were asking of Nenad and Rod, because I'm like another level maybe removed. Rod, did you grow up in Croatia or did you grow up here in the States? Or
I was a child in Croatia, but it is so ingrained. Those memories are really, really strong. I left as, I think, a 6-year-old, and I'm not sure. I think, Nenad, you say you grew up in Rijeka. I grew up in central Zagreb, central-most Zagreb, the capital.
I was born in Zagreb.
Oh, you were born in Zagreb also. Okay, yeah.
I was 4 or 5.
wow.
Yeah. Okay, yes, just like me. And I was like pod zidom 10, which I'm looking right up at the cathedral. It's like right there, right between the market and the square.
Yeah.
And that was my infancy and childhood, and it's so ingrained. But then all the summers we always went to the sea somehow. Somebody took me to the sea when I was little, when I was like 1, 2, 3, and it's just in there, and now when I go back, I'm just reconnecting with that, and it's just such a power. But I went straight from there. We were in Germany for a little while, then in England for a year. This is all on the basis of my father's success as a scientist. And then he was offered a position at the University of Minnesota. He did some research for 4 years, permanent position, University of Iowa. And then it was Iowa for like 35, 40 years.
Wow.
And then I finally broke out.
So your formative years were here in the States and like Midwest,
Yes.
did you say? So it was Minnesota, Iowa?
City, Iowa, which is like they call it the Athens of the Midwest. I couldn't get out of Iowa City. It was just too much fun. It was too cool. And there's so much going on, so many cool bands, all these influences, like the gig I had, and still it's an ongoing thing, the gig with Asleep at the Wheel, they came through when I was 15 and I heard Floyd Domino play the piano and I said, I want to do that, and we snuck into a bar and there was this really cool kind of like, somewhere between Burrito Brothers, Asleep at the Wheel, there's a B. Bender Telly guy, and I learned all that stuff as a teenager and just went nuts there in Iowa City and couldn't leave because there are too many good bands. So, there's just too many fun gigs. I busted out in 95 and I went to New York.
New York. As David, I think you point out sometimes about Dvorak and his experience in Spillville.
Oh my God.
In Iowa.
You
had homesickness the whole time.
Oh my God. My parents, devotees, just complete classical music fanatics. The first thing we did when my dad got the job in Iowa City, we went to Spillville first. And it was like just a huge, and here's the ironic twist to that story. So there we are, and we're, checking out all the Dvorak stuff in Spillville. And then I crawl back into Spillville. This is the other side of Spillville. So I'm in Iowa City and I'm playing in all these bands. Yeah. There's an insane party scene going on, as I don't need to elaborate on too much, but my roommate is actually from 5 miles from Spillville. He opens a bar in neighboring Fort Atkinson, and we always go to Spillville to party with just all these like Czech descended beer drinkers. And then I'd even get stories. People still talk about Dvorak. They talked about him like, Oh, geez, well, he used to take 3 big sacks of beer, go down by the river, and he'd like compose and stuff. And then, well, every Sunday morning, he'd come up into the church. He'd start playing that organ. Oh boy, nobody played the organ
Wait a
like that.
minute, is this true or is this a tall tale? How
True,
old
true.
could
I'm
they
not
be?
kidding, man.
These
This is
old
Milton,
people.
Iowa, and I partied with those guys.
They had memories of the Dvorak, you're saying?
No, they would talk. They talked about it. I mean, the lore. It was like it was kind of like, the townies. Oh yeah, well yeah, he was there. They're kind of proud of it. There's another guy, totally unrelated, Beely Clocks, and he's like some crazy, I don't know, there's this clock museum. It's like something you'd see in, I don't know, in Switzerland or something, and it's in Spellville.
The Billy clocks, when I was there, you couldn't
Yeah.
get up to the second floor to see
Yeah.
all the stuff that Dvorak left that town unless you saw the Billy clock exhibition.
Oh man.
And I said, man, I don't want to see any cuckoo clocks. That's why I didn't spend a lot of time in Switzerland, because people said that's all we've known for is a cuckoo clocks.
Yeah.
Of course, they have
Democracy.
Ansermet and those great Orchestra de la Suisse Romande and a whole bunch of other stuff. This phenomenal in Switzerland. I loved it. But I was told by some people, Swiss people, who were disgruntled because they had a gig they didn't enjoy. And they said, that is just boring here, which was, at any rate, I thought cuckoo clock, no. But then I figured I wanted to see the Dvorak. I was amazed. They had the sack of Rome, Julius Caesar, all the great stories and legends made by these 2 crazy farmers who never left the Spillville area, who were born in Czechoslovakia. And in the wintertime, when things got slow, they would make, one was a monster great clockmaker, and the other named Billy, 2 brothers named Billy. I don't know how you spell that, but that was a Czech name, not our Billy, Billy. He was a fantastic sort of thinker, artist, and he got all these great legends. And the other guy was a great clock, and got together with his brother, who was a great clockmaker. So they had these things all carved out by hand of pictures of stuff from the Bible and Shakespeare, and these amazing clocks, all of which worked so well that you got to really dig clockworks. Then after an hour and a half, you were allowed to go upstairs. And I'll never forget the picture of Dvorak in his overcoat with a group of Kickapoo Indians who were on tour, giving a tour in 1898 or something like that. And Dvorak looking, you could see the look at his face saying, oh man, other stuff. So he's the one that told us that the great singer and composer had such a beautiful voice that when he wrote that melody in the second movement of the famous symphony, the symphony that celebrated America, that was the closest thing to Berlai's voice. And he was the teacher, one of the teachers of James Reese Europe and of Goldmark. And Goldmark became the teacher of George Gershwin and Aaron Copland for a while, and James Reese Europe influenced Ellington. So he was sort of, Dvorak was sort of like the granddaddy of American music, or what it now looks like it's becoming. And he said in his letters that if they took what they called the Negro people, now we would say African American people perhaps, or the Indians that we now say indigenous people, but the language he used then in his writing was that they had took the American Indian and the Negro music, the music of African American folks and the Native American peoples or indigenous people, and didn't throw the European tradition out with down the drain. The idea, if you discover one thing, you throw everything else down the toilet. That's more show business style, but not art or life or heritage or culture. He said, if you can take the European techniques and use those and incorporate that and use this great music that's already here, composers from this country would have a whole palette to draw from with respect and study, just as much as you study Bach, you study that music. and find a way to not necessarily put that together, but use that influence, a whole new language or addition to the language, an evolution would occur. And that's kind of what we're beginning to see now with the political difference and the struggles and death of the record industry. As Woody Guthrie said, so long it's been good to know you. Now it has committed harikari and tanked itself due to being miserably run, crookedly administered, and not serving the needs of the customers, where the kids' junior high school orchestras bands play better than what you buy on the schlock payola criminal crap of the week. All that is either vanished or vanishing. What's coming up by default, all the things, including those who love European classical music, is the discovery, first of all, of women, 52% of our population. Some of them have a lot to offer besides looking fine. And a lot of people of color and all that stuff also have something to offer. Some have a whole lot to offer. And maybe we should check out those cultures that are right here and have been here for a long time that we know nothing about, and incorporate some of that culture and welcome the people who created that culture to be part of it and help us to become better and more grown up. And that's just called Civilization 101. And by default, we're discovering that. So now they're beginning, I heard the Kronos Quartet, where they had a whole program of women composers from all over the world, and a lot of them from different parts of the world had never really written anything for chamber group. There they were singing, some of them playing indigenous instruments, having the guys in the and the one great woman cellist in the Kronos Quartet play what they could do so beautifully in conjunction with, it was a whole night of fantastic music, and the audience didn't leave. And they were coming there to see the Kronos Quartet, whatever they could do. And I heard Jaime Laredo conducting a whole concert of orchestra students, and just miraculous, because those people, both of them, in different types of music, loved music and wanted to include the world, not by having some businessman say, okay, we're going to throw a whole bunch of money in the wheelbarrow and then throw it off the side of the building, but rather whoever was funding that had some picture of what music was about. I don't mean to give such a long-winded speech, but.
Well, to tie into that, David, I'm thinking about the question with Croatia and the way in Europe, many of the countries that have never received the kind of spotlight that, say, France and Germany typically receive, like the smaller Slavic groups, it's nice to sometimes see the kind of concerts organized where you're discovering music from all of the, like the Lithuania, Estonia, the Baltic countries.
Oh boy!
But they all produce so many wonderful wonderful things, creations. And musically speaking, just to stay with that, there's these Croatian composers that always astonish me that are out there that we never hear about them, and it would be nice programming. I think in Europe you'll see like German orchestras are now programming. The woman from Croatia that died 100 years ago, she's receiving a lot of attention now.
Oh boy.
Rod, do you remember her name? It's just failing me at the moment. They're considering her like one of the most important Croatian composers, like you would say father of the, or whatever. You could call her the mother of the Croatian symphony.
Dora Pejacevic.
Yeah, Pejacevic.
Dora Pejacevic.
Oh, yes, okay.
Major performances,
Well,
major
Nadia Boulanger's sister, Nadia Boulanger, was a famous international world, guru forever. People forgot her sister, who passed away when she was young. It probably didn't live in the beginning of the 20th century, wrote this, and Joanne Folletta, when she did a double concerto piece I wrote, she played this piece by Nadia Boulanger's sister. Oh man, it was, and the Rachmaninoff dances along. I said, good God. with those wonderful pieces of stuff that you wouldn't hear. So it's not a thing for those millions of people that listen to Nenad's program every week, or at least the 3 or 4 that do. That doesn't mean you have to join a cult or you have to join a left or a right-wing organization or go anything. It's got nothing to do with all that. That's all there. That has to do with a lot of stuff. But this is something else. It's just the world of beauty, which is for anybody and everybody because it's all out there. If you pay
David, if it's 1 or if it's 1,000,000, it counts, you know.
absolutely.
And I sent to you guys, I think it was over Hangoutology. At 12 noon, I got an alert that there's a new video, you know, coming out from Deutsche Welle, where millions of people watch. You'll see thousands of comments on their work. And it was a video about ping pong Parkinson's in Germany. And I'm wondering, Nenad, did you have a chance to look at that video?
Yes, I know these people.
You know them, huh? It's a huge venue. I mean, or, you know, this Deutsche Welle, that's tremendous. The number of people that are exposed to information there.
Yeah.
Hundreds of thousands. I mean, they have millions of subscribers for sure.
Yeah, she's a wonderful woman, Silke Kunde.
She puts a very positive spin on the whole topic.
Yeah.
That's important.
It's worldwide. My gosh.
I'll show you what NBC did and CBS did in Philadelphia just last week. Not last week. Yeah, let me just try to do it. I'm a little bit slow.
Yeah, that video, Nenad, I don't know if you're able to on this show to show some of that or anything of that work you do, and you see all the people with Parkinson's suddenly lighting up and having a good time and playing music. It's just so inspiring.
Why are some New York homeowners still paying for electricity when they could be getting free government assistance to go solar?
Ping pong. It is a game that takes a little bit of skill and especially good hand-eye coordination. For people with motor impairments, though, like Parkinson's disease, you might think a game like this would be that much harder, right? But NBC 10's Matt DeLucia found a few who are having a ball in Old City.
8 years ago, Nenad Bach stopped playing the guitar because his Parkinson's disease made it too difficult. But he's found his rhythm again with a paddle and a ball.
And next day I felt much better for some reason. So I said, maybe there is something there. So I increased it to 2-3 times a week. And after 3-4 months, I could play guitar again.
So Nenad started recruiting other people with Parkinson's to play and started Ping Pong Parkinson with chapters launching across the country. And now Philadelphia at Ping Pod at 3rd and Chestnut.
We don't know why, but people who couldn't walk are walking now in our club. People who couldn't talk are talking now. So there is something there. I don't know what, but there's something there.
One person who's trying to figure that out is Penn neuroscience student Stephanie Chen. Her grandfather had Parkinson's.
As I was going through different research articles, I came across one that talked about how playing ping pong could potentially help combat Parkinson's disease symptoms.
She also happens to be on Penn's table tennis team, playing competitively for a decade.
But I never thought that playing table tennis would be a therapeutic avenue. So I think that when I found out about this, I was just really excited to see that 2 things that I was both so passionate about could come together.
You cannot wipe the smile off their faces. They're happy to be there. Otherwise, we are totally isolated. 10 million people in the world waiting on the couches to die.
Now serving a sport that comes as naturally as a song.
I like it.
In Old City, Matt DeLucia, NBC 10 News.
Nice.
That was on Tuesday,
That's it.
7 days ago,
A week ago. Yeah.
week ago, yeah.
Wow. Congratulations.
And this-
Wow.
Terrific.
That's
What may
inspiring.
seem like an unusual therapy for Parkinson's disease has arrived here in Philadelphia. There are no doctors needed for this treatment, just a table, paddles, and a ball.
Really interesting. Health reporter Stephanie Stahl was there for opening day. This is very
That's right. It's a fun therapy, you guys. Ping Pong Parkinson's open today in Old City, Philadelphia. It's a fun, active game that's showing promise for helping people with the movement disorder. Ping pong. Nenad Bach is back to playing the guitar. He'd been forced to give it up when he was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease.
So when I go home to get this better, but when I move, I don't shake, you see.
Even with medication, he wasn't able to play, but ping pong changed all that.
It's like playing chess and running 100 yards at the same time. So it's a complex sport.
He started playing for fun, but then realized it could be life-changing, allowing him to play music again.
Well, that was a beautiful moment.
To share the benefits of table tennis with other Parkinson's patients, Bach started Ping Pong Parkinson's. Exercise can help with Parkinson's, and doctors say ping pong specifically helps with things like hand-eye coordination, balance, and movement.
So I thought this was a really great opportunity.
Stephanie Chen, a neuroscience pre-med student at Penn, founded the Philadelphia chapter.
My grandfather had Parkinson's back when I was younger, and that's when I started becoming interested in neuroscience research.
She's a fierce player herself who thinks the mental and physical components would be helpful for the movement disorder.
Ping pong is something that requires a lot of strategic thinking and fast reaction time.
I think this will help with that.
Fred Borman, who was diagnosed with Parkinson's last year, is among the first to show up for Ping Pong Parkinson's on Chestnut Street. He likes his place at the table.
Well, keeps me active, keeps me away from being in a wheelchair.
Now, the Old City location that opened today will have a series of classes where Parkinson's patients will play with volunteers. We have more information for you at cbsphiladelphia.com.
Where's the poop? Seriously, if someone's calling his clock.
There's a commercial for everything, right?
That was great, Nenad.
Yeah,
That's
fantastic.
amazing.
Nenad.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yes.
This is Wisconsin.
Brad, are you in Chicago?
Yes.
So do they, maybe that's a step for this whole movement. I don't know. Nenad, what's your activity in Chicago?
Yeah, he's in Chicago.
Hey,
He
models
did a
and
big
clothing
video in
interviews
Chicago.
that you'll find during a group session with Ping Pong Parkinson at the East Madison Community Center. As our Nicole Herzog reports, today's Ping Pong Parkinson kickoff event is part of a national effort helping people take a break from their disease.
It's
one
all
pong
this
ball
week.
at a time.
Oh my God, that's Madison.
Player or just starting out, Ping Pong Parkinson is all about learning how to play the game and having fun.
I haven't played
Next door.
for years,
Is it?
so it's fun
Yep.
to go back and learn about how to play it correctly and how to keep the ball on the table.
Ping Pong Parkinson started in New York as a way to raise awareness of the benefits ping pong can bring for people with Parkinson's disease. Now that group has launched in Madison, bringing that level of fun while providing a nice break from day-to-day life.
It's fun, you know, it gets the people here interacting and enjoying themselves and taking a break from the lows of their day.
For those diagnosed with Parkinson's, the group's leader says sometimes exercise is the best medicine.
Sometimes our days can be very challenging. Wake up and we can't move because we're shaking so much, or our balance is really bad. We can't get across the room without a cane or walks. Doing these kinds of exercises helps to bring that balance back and to be able to function better.
But all this fun doesn't end when the paddles are set down. The group also works on facial exercises, vocal warm-ups, and even some juggling to help them manage the disease. The best part of it all is that anyone can participate. While priority is given to those with Parkinson's, friends and caretakers are welcome to join in.
If a person is diagnosed with Parkinson's, to realize it's not the end of the world. It's just your body is aging a different way than the person next to you is aging. And there are things that you can do to make your life more comfortable. And one of those things is exercise. And ping pong is a great way of doing that.
And you can find the group on Thursdays and Sundays at the East Madison Community Center from 2 to 3:30 in Madison. I'm Nicole Herzog for News 3 Now.
So that's what happened in another one, but I don't want to bore you. It's
That's fantastic. That's right next door here. And that's one of my favorite towns. It's a great town.
Wow. Wait, Madison, is that Wisconsin?
in Wisconsin.
University of Wisconsin. Yeah, it's a big college. It's kind of like Austin of Wisconsin.
So kind of like a university town in that positive
Oh yeah,
sense?
yeah.
That's what
It's
you like about
it's
it?
all a university. Yeah,
And
it's like Ann Arbor, a lot like Ann Arbor.
Bloomington would be another of that sort, Bloomington, Indiana.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, I mean and Indiana is famous for its music school down there. They have like one of the top music schools there.
Oh, terrific.
Danbury's been there, yeah.
The man who organized this ping pod is the 24 hours a day venue to play ping pong called ping pong. And he studied in Madison, Wisconsin by coincidence. He's from New York. So it's
they have a Kurt Vonnegut Museum now in Naptown. That was called actually Indianapolis. When I was in the Army, I said, "Hey man, you got to come and hear some of these modern cats." 1952, he said, "You're playing little bebop." He said, "Here's a place where this half that music started." I said, "Where is it?" He said, "Naptown." I said, "What part of I was in Camp Breckenridge, Kentucky, 101st Airborne Basic Training." I said, what state, what part of Kentucky is? No, that's in Indianapolis. I said, or no, Indiana. I said, really? Because we're right on the border. I said, what big town is that in Indiana's a big state. What big town is it close to? They said, no, Naptown, that's the town. That's what we call Indianapolis. This was 1952. I didn't know. So I went there to Liberty Avenue, and that's where they had, all the fantastic J.J. Johnson and all those people. They were all playing in that neighborhood at that time. All these monster killer great Monk and Wes Montgomery, the Montgomery brothers, there were a trio, actually, three of them. And the whole Hampton family, Freddie Hubbard. I mean, so many great jazz players came. And then the wonderful school in Bloomington, which is only, 30 miles away. They had David Baker, and he became a teacher, and he wrote extraordinary articles and books about Liberty Avenue, this great place where these tremendous players had come from, and how important that was. And he was taught at the university. He did also as a heck of a classical composer. He did in a mellow tone, a tribute to Duke Ellington, the New York Philharmonic, played some unbelievably great musicians. That's probably if there's such a thing as the best school of, conservatory of music, I'd say that's probably the one. Just unbelievable. And in Indianapolis, they had so many terrific jazz players. And the Kurt Vonnegut Museum, in the back of it, first of all, you walk in there, instead of being like going to a penitentiary, which I played Attica, that's not too friendly. You got to bring the warmth with you. You walk in there, you feel great. And the people in there, and they have a big picture of Kurt Vonnegut smiling and having a good time. And everybody there, all the things that Kurt Vonnegut did are just so wonderful and encouraging. And in the very back, I saw this great big, huge graffiti board. I said, oh. They said, no, we built that. Anybody can come by and feel welcome to put something up. And then when there's too much stuff, they erase it and give someone else a chance. That's encouraged. I said, imagine that. I never saw any museum that encouraged graffiti. The idea was taking that artistic impulse that people have and something Kurt Vonnegut wanted, rather than saying this is a bunch of ruffians destroying the $1 million art value that somebody has from, as a result of collectors' politics that got nothing to do with anything except their politics of who gets what and selling it for profit. You know, I won't go into all that, except to say it's pretty far removed from anything of what art's supposed to be about. And here people can come up and express themselves and put something up there. So if someone's got some artistic ability, rather than feeling, well, I have to leave wherever I am and go 1,000 miles to some art school so I can flunk out, you're encouraged where you live to put your little something out there, your kind of footprints in the sand. It's a wonderful thing. Now that's Kurt Vonnegut right in Indianapolis. I didn't mean to, since you mentioned, and most people think
David could
Indianapolis.
riff on Indiana now for the next hour.
Oh no,
let me move it to
all those places that aren't supposed to be hip are the hippest. Because I tell people, even when we're in Oklahoma, Brad and I have been a bunch of times, said, you guys are lucky being a little under the radar. You didn't get Burger Kinged out by a bunch of people coming in and say, now we're going to show you hillbillies how to be cultural and make money off of your culture. Just by not being part of it, there's somebody drives through and doesn't pay attention. They've been spared that, so they have something indigenous, something special. Every place has got something special, but they didn't get assimilated and Burger Kinged out. They're still, because there are parts of the country you go to, man, you wouldn't know what state you're in. There's all the same fast food, you know, same stuff. You say, and everybody's kind of speaking the same. There's no regional accents. You say, where am I? Am I in the South? Am I in the Midwest? There's still places that got that thing and retain that. That's why it's so great going to Lowell, Mass, because working with Kerouac all those years, to have a Lowell celebrates Kerouac. That's 30 miles from Boston. And most people think that's sort of no man's land because it ain't Boston, just like people living in New York City don't. I'm up in Beacon, New York, and there are places in New Jersey across the river, and Connecticut and Queens where Spoody lives that are fantastic, that aren't part of the official menu of Big Shotsville, and therefore are considered to be, you know, turkeys. When I did the Brooklyn Philharmonic for 29 years, doing the young people's and community concerts, Lucas Foster did the main concerts. And when he was on a big program, they said, well, Lucas, what's it like being in Brooklyn? As if that was, you know, the end of life. And he said, I feel very privileged. He said, these great musicians come. This is an amazing, you know, he went into this whole spiel, and the interviewer backed down because he was talking to Mr. Big at that time of classical music. And then Mr. Big was saying what a pleasure it was to be in Brooklyn, not saying that Manhattan sucked or the Carnegie Hall was bad, but the Brooklyn Academy was an amazing place. And we have places all over the country like that. And now with the collapse of everything, of a lot of things that we know about, we're by discovering, you know, what an amazing place the United States is. Those like Rad, myself, and travel all the time still, and Nenad, every time I speak to him, he's in a different country. We're lucky enough to see what an amazing world it is, and what an amazing country it is here if you really go and get into that hangoutology and travel around. And one of the things that a lot of us discovered is that wherever we are, we appreciate being there, we can learn something, and we can also let people know that we appreciate them and that they should encourage their hometown to be celebrate what it is, and make the next generation not feel I'm in the sticks, or I'm in the wrong part of the country, or I'm in the wrong part of town. So when people come to New York, they figure if they don't play in a certain section for jazz or folk music or classical music, they might as well be in Hong Kongsville in the Aleutian Islands, because their life is finished. Every place is the big time. And if the band doesn't outnumber the audience, you're a big hit.
David, speaking of that, a poetic topic that John Flynn enters now, because I was just thinking of John 5 minutes ago, David was all over the map with connecting the dots, and we were talking about Attica Prison suddenly. And so just thinking of your work and what you explained to us last time, and just feeling like, wow, I wish John were here right now. And
I
here
was thinking of that myself. John Flynn, for those listeners who might have missed the program, recent programs, he's a terrific folk singer and a wonderful musician and a great guy. And he started off a program of rehabilitating prisoners when they get out of prison, as well as being in prison, so that they can have something in their life and something together and somehow use that incarceration as a way of developing themselves and society, and rather than becoming what Ralph Ellison's book, The Invisible Man, made so many people, including women, that were up against it, so as not to make those compassionate, loving people that care for everybody feel bad. So the best way to solve that problem was to say that they weren't there. And that started in slavery, where people were not given names. And by being an invisible person, by saying they ain't really there, that's the easiest way to, if you have any conscience, to solve a problem of feeling guilt or feeling hurt. It's like telling kids if they don't have the book about Rosa Parks, they'll be better off because something might hurt their feelings.
So,
you know,
John,
that's such a bunch of crap, only because understanding what's, the dark side of a culture means you can appreciate the light side. It also makes you realize that what was wrong was, always will be wrong, and therefore not to be that way yourself, not to do that, and not to endorse that. But by pretending that it never happened, you're not really getting prepared for anything, except to, when that wrong comes along in a certain way of putting confectioner's sugar over it to make it appealing, you say, oh, I guess that's cool, or I guess that's hip, that's fashionable, so we'll go along with that. That's why we're blessed. I don't want to ruin your appetites, but to have Donald Trump around, because his gradual committing of harikari and his revolting behavior makes all of us, especially me being 92, I'm older than him, brought up with those same crappy values, realize maybe that ain't cool, because he's doing that for us, showing us what not to do by how disgusting he has become, and showing us that disgusting part in ourselves. We have to quell that, just like we learn basic hygienic things of not to do, because it can be disgusting, and that we have to, sometimes control ourselves, and there is a good and an evil. So therefore we have to be compassionate to his fans, because they, as they say in the vernacular, don't know better. And because the society celebrates John Dillinger and Charles Manson and violence, and and there's a different, at least professional wrestling, they're all good athletes and they got this stuff planned. And in real boxing or real competitive sports, they're gifted people and they hug each other afterwards. There's a difference. There's some kind of a higher level of nobility involved in that. When it's just like some egomaniac publicity hound, that's understandable infantile behavior. But if you see that, then you realize that ain't cool. There's a better way. And you could find different role models other than being the most disgusting person of your time. So we have to take everything and see it in a larger picture, and see the most disgusting, revolting things might be part of us as human beings, but we can control that stuff. And if we're in the receiving end of that disgusting behavior, it makes you understand that a lot more. So, When they talk about censorship, I mean, good Lord. How about all the violence and murder and homicide that we think is supposed to be entertaining or groovy? Steve Allen told me when we did the Jack Kerouac Memorial, he said he was, all the people in Hollywood thought he was like the great hip progressive crazy guy that, had all these he had Jack Kerouac on his show and Lenny Bruce and people like that, and had a band that wasn't just only exclusively people of the Caucasian persuasion, but had people not because they had a dark skin, but because they could play their ass off also in the band. He was very much not ahead of his time. He was right on the time. When he finally said, when they had a big conference of all young people, getting stoned out of their heads and drinking and drugging themselves to death, he said, maybe we're partly responsible for that in the entertainment industry and in the films and in television by endorsing that and making that look hip and groovy and swinging and get down fashionable. Suddenly, he became like the Ayatollah, he said. And they said, good old Stevie. If I said something about assassinating a world leader, they would have said, oh, Steve Aruno is at it again. But the fact that he indicated possibly those folks who were, creating entertainment might have some responsibility with those millions of gallons of poison that they were throwing down at young people to encourage aberrant and self-destructive behavior. He said at that point, when he saw that they were cutting into their bank accounts, he became the pariah and suddenly became like the Ayatollah or the conservative dictator just in a minute. And he said, to me, it was just the fact that we have to, be responsible for what we do and think of the effect that has on other people and self-discipline to try to do something good. It was interesting
before we end,
in that position that he was in and the crap that he went through to dare to suggest that possibly he and his friends might be responsible for what they're doing. Just a good thought. So that's why it's so great to be with you guys that are all people I look up to, and anybody watching the program would, because you all care about what you're doing in your life and making it a better world anyway.
So before we hear John a little bit what he's doing today, we will just end the session. I just want to have an observation that usually you are not what you think you are. If you think you're stupid, you are probably not stupid. If you think you're cool, you are not. If you think you're not cool, you probably are cool. So it's just opposite of what you think you are. Anyway, John, tell us just few minutes, if you don't mind. What's your day?
What was your day like, John?
Well, I hope that doesn't. I feel welcome. Does that mean I'm not welcome? Because I think I'm welcome here.
No, came late to the party.
Well, as you guys know, I got the prison group on Tuesday nights, and it ran a little long this week. So I apologize for showing up late.
No, we were just talking about you saying the great stuff you did, but maybe you should say it. Not, I know you wouldn't put it that way yourself, but to say what you're doing. Because
we said we will start later, and I forgot about that. We were supposed to start later because of you, but I forgot.
Well, I just wanted to make sure I got to say hello because I look forward to getting my Amram-isms each month, and what I'm doing, David, is kind of like what you're doing here. It's hangoutology, except in prison. It's just sitting and talking and listening and kind of be there for each other, not trying to fix each other. Somebody sent me like a Native American medicine person prayer. It was like an anonymous prayer, and it went something like, I'm not here to fix you. I see you in your wholeness. I'm not here to heal you. You don't need to be cured. I'm here to kind of share the darkness that you're walking through until you find your own light, the light that's already in you. you know, and it's really more along those lines, just kind of be relationship. So like when people ask me if I change the people I meet in prison, I say, no, they change me. I just go in there and try and be open to them. And I always come out changed. And so today was two groups. We started a new returning citizen group over at Widener Law School here in Delaware at a place called Project New Start, which is a kind of a 10-week job training course for returning citizens. And so they asked us to bring in my group. And so I met a couple of new guys over there. And then I went into Howard R. Young tonight. You know, it was a good day. I got one of my guys is getting out of prison after 21 years. And he'll leave Howard R. Young tomorrow. And he'll go to a work release facility here in North Wilmington, where we're going to have a group for him each week for the next 6 months. And then he'll be on this, you know, he'll be living at his sister's house. He's training to be a drug and alcohol counselor. I think he's going to be great. You know, he's going to take all that he's been through and try and help people with it. And sometimes when you can do that, when you can draw on what on your own journey and give it meaning by turning around and helping somebody else with their own challenges, you know, it just makes everybody better. You know? So it was a good day for me.
All right.
I wanted to ask Rod, which kind of keyboard do you have behind you? What was the keyboard behind you, Rod?
That's me. Oh, this is this is the one I play most of the time at home. It's a Yamaha. It's like one of those Yamaha kind of home models. It's probably 10 years older, so it still sounds fantastic to me. It's essential. Let's see the model number. It's essential to me because my wife here, Kim, she is working, so I can't be playing a real piano because she is in meetings all day and I play all day with headphones. Let's see, it is a Yamaha P155 digital piano.
Is it Clavinova or no?
It's not a Clavinova. I actually prefer this. This is the best thing that in the home model that I've ever played, and it really works for me. It really feels like the real deal, and I'm just more than satisfied.
You said PL 115?
E155. Yeah, Yamaha P155.
155. Okay. Is it light to carry or is it heavy?
No, this is you park it. This is you put it in your living room. That's all it's good for. It's too heavy. Digital piano P155. Yeah. It doesn't even have, it has a stand that's not compatible for travel.
Yeah.
But it's great. And I have a different Yamaha for gigs and keyboards all over the place.
Key has to have a weight, otherwise it's not.
Oh yeah. Oh no, it is. It's I have yet to play something better than this, honestly.
Yeah.
In a keyboard.
It's like a symbol. If it's not heavy, then it's not worth it. It's
No, this is for the living room. Like if you need a headphone setup and you're in your home, this is it. But the Rode, there's probably a Rode version of this. And I probably
I have also I have at home.
Is it touch sensitive?
Oh yeah, no, it's as piano-like as I mean, I mostly practice classical music on it because it's and it's really hard to play classical music on something that's not piano-like.
My biggest complaint is about electronic instruments is that there is no infinite number of tones that you can play, because on a regular piano you can play like 50 notes and they will still sustain the sound.
Oh no, this I have never, I suffered. I paid my dues with the slow keyboards. Oh my God, and I would have keyboards spit out notes. I was in concerts and if I played my keyboard too aggressively,
it would randomly spit out a note back at me. And I got busted at a big show in Minneapolis with Greg Brown. I'm playing a solo. I got a little too into it. I'm thinking, bing, and then everybody, hey, you hit a clam. I didn't do it.
It wasn't me.
My fingers do the same thing to me.
Damn the fingers.
It's the brain. It's overloaded.
Right. Yeah.
Or David, when he's improvising on his French horn and playing jazz, that's pretty challenging.
Well, I have to take, I'm in good health, but my horn needs some rehabilitation, and I have to take it to a place. One of the valves are permanently stuck. So I'm glad I don't need a valve for my heart, but I need one for the horn.
Yeah.
And I've got to take that back to make comeback number 165,000. But all of that helps me to playing the piano. So when I do it, I just thinking, oh man, this really sucks. But when I hear it back, it sounds okay. And it's because of playing the horn all those years. It gives you a sense of trying to sing and be expressive. And I guess the key in music and in life is to play within your limitations. I remember when I wrote my piano concerto, I did a concert with Candido and Alfredo Arturo O'Farrell. And Arturo was playing, oh man, he played something, was so incredible. I said, wait a minute. I think he and Franz Liszt already did that, and Chopin and everybody else. I better write something else and not even go down that track, because what he was playing, I realized, you could write that out, and he could read it, because he was a great classical player too, but it was so creative and so brilliant, and he could make up something else just as brilliant. So therefore, it'd be better to do within my limitations, not what I could play necessarily, but what someone else could play that would be what I could hear, that would be within my limitations. And I did that, and it came out fine. And I said, Arturo, you played so great when I heard you do that you showed me what you already done and what other composers have already done. So perhaps I better do something else. And that piece I'm running for unaccompanied violin, I suddenly realized was so hard just after one instrument. So rather than having a double stop every other second to show how smart I was, I'd be better off doing something that felt beautiful, that was musical, and not to project any idea that this is going to show them how smart I am, but just to do something musical. And I think playing anything helps you to do that. You sort of have to strip it down and to be honest and be yourself. When you hear Rad play, I mean, man, there's nobody like him. And John Flynn, when he played on his record, this gorgeous song he wrote for his mother. It was so simple and so beautiful. I realized, well, that was something terrific. And by just playing a little penny whistle on his song, I could enter into his world. It's almost like you're entering into another world, or someone's home or someone's family. A very sensitive, beautiful thing. And you have to do that. And then you realize you have to do that all the time in every situation to be attuned to what other people are feeling and doing. Not to be a great humanitarian or to be anything, just to be gracious, polite, human. And that applies to almost everything, including, that's why music or sports or group building of houses or anything can be so valuable, because you're with other people, you're part of a group, and you have to be sensitive to how they're feeling and know when and what to do. So in order to prove that, I'm going to be quiet and listen to you guys.
So talking about limitations, I play only limitations.
Rather than a 4.5 hour unsolicited monologue.
So anyway, it was good to see you,
Good
boys.
to see everybody.
And
Yeah.
let's next time I will be in June. I will be in Croatia, and in July I will be in Spain.
Will there be a meeting in May? Nenad?
May is from New York.
Oh, I see. And then in following two, you'll be traveling.
Yeah, traveling for 5 months.
Wow.
Yeah.
On the road.
Road. I'm not looking forward. It's difficult for
It's
me
hard.
to travel.
Yeah.
If I could dematerialize, that would be, and materialize again, that would be the best. Flying with the speed of light.
Mm.
You know, Photon, even Photon came to hotel and say, you didn't bring your luggage. He said, I travel light.
Mm.
When a Photon came to hotel, and the concierge asked him, where is your luggage? And then he said, I travel light. I had to repeat twice so you can understand me. That's not limitation.
And then he says, by the way, is my cat still alive?
Oh. You guys are getting way too quantum physics for me.
The outer limits.
Quanta physics. Quantanamera physics. Anyway, all the best. Thank you, David. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, John. Thank you.
Nice to see you, gentlemen.
Thank you, Nenad.
Great to
Good
see
Safe
you.
travels, Nina.
You're right.
Yes.
Right.
David Maestro, good night.
Good night.
Okay.
You're Beacon and Beacon.
Yeah.
I'll look forward to it.
Yeah. A lot of photons there.
Oh, yeah.
It's hilarious. Photons and photons. Sounds like autobiography title.
Could be a band.
Photons and photons. Yeah. Okay, good night, everybody.
Okay,
Good
night,
Good
guys.
night, good night.
Yeah.